questions or comments regarding the August 13th minutes or the August 27th minutes from the workshop?
Motion to approve.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor of approving the minutes from both meetings, please signify by saying aye.
And Mr. Piney, I'm going to have to unfortunately go through the roll call here because of the Zoom meeting. And I'm assuming with the
Oh,
maker
that's
of the
fine.
motion and the second,
That's
that's for both sets of minutes? Okay. I see some,
Sorry about that.
I see some nodding there. Okay.
Oh, there she is.
Having an internet connection issue here.
Okay. So
Hopefully I
right
will
now
be
we've got a motion and a second to approve the minutes of both meetings. So I will go through a roll call vote on that one. Commissioner Vaughn,
Yes.
Commissioner Golbush,
Yes.
Commissioner Sinclair,
Yes.
Commissioner Fox.
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Yes.
Commissioner Balsanic,
Yes.
and Commissioner Piney.
Yes.
Okay, I will note that those minutes are approved, and we do have the arrival of our president here. So, Mr. Piney, if you want to cede control over to Ms. Sullivan, we can continue with the meeting.
Very good. Thank you, Martha.
Well, if you would like to continue leading the meeting, I'm more than happy for you to.
You're making the big bucks. You go right ahead.
Oh, too true, too true. Okay, so next on the agenda, I believe Mr. Hinson will be going over the bills.
Yeah, looking at the bills, we have combined from August and September. The most substantial we have the Cunningham Group, who has been working on our downtown property redevelopment study. This is something that we'll be bringing forward to you by the year's end to provide some feedback on, but they've done the majority of their work, and we're looking through that as we speak. We also have some bills related to COVID for downtown barricades. These would be part of our CARES funding as well on that. So I can stand for any questions on the bills.
Any questions for Mr. Hinsman on the bills? If not, we will entertain a motion to approve the bills as presented. Mr. Sinclair moves. Mr. Golbush, second that motion. All those in favor, we'll do a roll call. Mr. Golbush?
Aye.
Claire?
Aye.
Ms. Fox?
Aye.
Mr. Balsanic?
Aye.
Mr. Vaughn?
Aye.
Mr. Piney?
Aye.
And I also will concur with that, and the motion passes to approve the bills. Next on the agenda is business, and we have a few signature authorizations. Approximately 5, I believe. Is that correct? Or 4? And then
I believe so.
Okay. And then discuss the industrial park sale.
Right. Okay, well, thank you, President Sullivan. I can continue with the first item here, and this is an authorization to sign a preliminary development agreement with Spades SBC. And I'm going to share my screen here so that we all remember what we're looking at here for the project. And let's try something else here. I'm not seeing anything at all. I'm going to try one more thing. All right. I don't think that's going to work, so I'll do it the old-fashioned way. You're going to have to look at me. The property we're looking at here is downtown Block 1. This is the property, 1.5 acres, that's located directly behind the Art Space building. And we have quite a history with it, as you all know. We've spent dollars purchasing the properties, cleaning up the properties, and have spent the last 20 years trying to sell the properties. There's a litany of history that I won't go over of projects that came forward and got to some level of approval or near construction, and of course never happened on it. So we continue to seek development of the property. And we're fortunate to have an entity come forward that we're very excited about, and that's Spades SBC. And we had discussed this project over a couple of meetings. We had a workshop back in late August to discuss this project and another project as to what would be best for the development of Block 1. And we all came to the conclusion that Spades SPC was a tremendous opportunity, one that we did not want to let pass by here, and one we were very excited to see if we could make this come into fruition for Hastings. I think on the line here we do have Ray Menard of Spades. I'm looking at a phone number here, not a name, so I'm not sure if Ray, if that is you, if you can raise your hand on use the raise hand function, I'll know it's you, and I can pull you into the meeting in a little bit. But what we're looking at tonight is a preliminary development agreement. What a preliminary development agreement is it sets the property aside to do due diligence. From the developer's standpoint, in order to have a property to test it out, to make sure that it actually is going to fit your needs, you're going to have to expend some capital on the property. And it's difficult for a developer to expend that capital without the guarantees from an entity that it won't be sold out under them to somebody else. And so what we're doing with this preliminary development agreement is we're agreeing to put the property on hold. There's certain obligations that we need to provide and certain obligations that the developer needs to provide. Both of these in the spirit of making sure that this property works for both sides and that we can eventually sell this property and have a development occur. So within the development agreement, one of the things that we had discussed at our workshop meeting was being able to ensure that we had certain targets that would take place. We were looking at the development agreement for being 1 year in length, but we wanted to ensure that there were different timeframes in which check-ins would occur so that we knew that the project was moving along. So within the preliminary development agreement, we did chunk out the different obligations by the developer into various dates. We have some items that are due by January 31st of next year, by March 31st, June 30th, and eventually the agreement would go for 1 year, which would be October 8th of 2021. So what does this mean? So October 8th, 2021, the due diligence would be complete on this property. Both entities would know whether this project could move forward. And then we could look at a sales agreement at that time. So what this agreement is not is a sales agreement. What this is, it's putting the property on hold and giving the opportunity to do due diligence on it. And we're very excited for this project to move forward. As recall with the Spades project, they're looking at bringing in building an office complex with anywhere from 50 to 200 employees that would be working there. Spades' mission for tree planting to fight climate change is very admirable, and they're very committed to doing that. Ray Menard's been as a citizen of Hastings and would like to be able to have this company take off in his backyard. And the company has had a lot of attention from investors. They're going through their capital campaign as we speak right now. And this is something that could be a tremendous benefit to the city here. So I'm not sure whether Ray is on the line or not. So if he can make some sort of indication, text me or raise his hand, I can verify that. But at this point, that's the action before you. That's the action before you tonight, and I can stand for any questions that we all have. And it looks like we have somebody brought into the meeting. Is that you, Ray?
You unmuted Chad Smarava.
Ah, I got Chad. Okay, well, Chad, you'll be on the next one then. We'll hold up on Chad for a little bit here, but at this time, I can stand for any questions that the commission may have.
Well, do we have some discussion on this? I think we were pretty much on the same page as of last meeting, that this was going to be the proposal. Do we have questions or comments on the actual purchase option agreement? Mr. Vaughn?
Thank you, John. Real quick, do we have a value of what we will be selling this to, or is that the next phase? I remember the last potential. We didn't really set it, and then all of a sudden, I just don't want to get us going too far and then we have one expectation and this other person has a different one.
Yeah, very, very good question, Commissioner. We've had the property marketed in the past for $470,000. And that's one of the items that we will be coming to conclusion on during the course of the preliminary development agreement is what the purchase price would be. Would it be 470? Would it be something else that depended on the appraisal and any subsidies that we may think are justifiable for the property?
Question as well.
Right?
Yes, John, has Mr. Menard been part of the conversation in setting these milestones at this point? Are we kind of on the ground running, or how were those dates come up with?
Commissioner Piney, that's correct. Mr. Menard has been part of setting those milestones. I have given him a copy of this draft agreement to ensure that this is something that's feasible for him, and he has agreed that is.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion so I can approve this and sign off on it.
Madam President, I'll move the question.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Piney. All those in favor? We'll start with Mr. Vaughn,
Yes.
Mr. Goblish,
Yes.
Mr. Sinclair,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Mr. Balsanic,
Aye.
and I will also agree with that. Thank you. And then,
Well, I'm
ahead.
sorry. I'm sorry, Madam President. Yeah, thanks again. And next steps on this is we will continue to have updates on this project as we move forward through the year, bring back progress reports, and hope to come to some agreement 1 year from now. So thank you very much.
Madam President,
yes, sir.
question for John. Is there a website for Spades SBC?
There is. I think it's spades.life, but I can email that out.
I'd appreciate that. Otherwise, every time I look it up, we're playing cards.
Okay.
Well, and also if you've saved their PowerPoint presentation, which would be in our archives, they also included it within the presentation framework. So just in case, it
Okay.
is available to the public as well that way.
All right.
Point of information. It is spades.life. Yeah. Thanks, Mark Van.
Okay. And we got some quick fingers there. I see it here. Thank you.
All right. Okay, any other commentary? Mr. Hinsman, anything else on this?
No, nothing more on that one. Thank you.
All right, so then we're up to the potential industrial park sale.
Yes, potential industrial park here. I'm going to try something else here. For some reason, when I was opening up the PowerPoint presentation previously, it covered up my screen and I couldn't see what I was doing. But I'd like to be able to show more on this one. So bear with me for just a moment while I call this back up. Okay, hopefully now it'll work. Here we go. I think I've got it now. I can share this up and I can still see what I'm doing. All right, so for this, we will head to the next project, which is a potential sale within the Hastings Industrial Park. We have interest by Simply Secure Storage, Chad Smurava. And you may recall that Chad is under construction with his site down here. This is Lightbourne Court and 31st Street. This is under construction, partially open, second phase of it under construction as we speak. Chad is also interested in acquiring a second site within the industrial park, which is located just to the north here off of Spiral Boulevard, adjacent to the trail and to the residential area of Glendale to the east here. You may also recall that the site here was the site that Chad was originally looking at. We did have an approval for this site to put what he is building here. However, there was a great big pile of dirt on the site that caused some problems, dirt spoils. If you've been by there lately, you'll notice that the dirt spoils are gone. We were able to sell that, and that has been cleaned up. So the site is ready for development. Chad has seen success from his existing development here, proposes to purchase this property and on some business storage site. This is a picture of what his existing facility looks like on Lightbourne. This is a revised drawing of what he would be proposing to do off of Spiral Boulevard. You can see there's about 40 to 45,000 square feet of what's termed business storage sites in 6 different buildings here. So he would be looking to purchase that from us. So do unshare. Share my screen, never mind. I don't know how I did that, but you learn all sorts of new things with this sometimes. So before we went down the road of an actual application, I wanted to have a discussion with HEDRA to make sure that that they would be on board with the sale here. When you take a look at the objectives of the Hastings Industrial Park and the sale of land, we're looking at creating a couple of different things. We're looking at job growth, and we're looking at valuation increase, taxable value increase through the construction of buildings. With a mini storage facility like this, you're not seeing the job growth. There's not any jobs that are associated with it. You do see some taxable value increase, however, not a similar taxable value increase you would see with a warehouse or office or industry in there. And so we would be seeing an impact, a positive impact from this development coming in there. However, we do have about 2 or 3 other mini storage spaces within the park. And I wanted to make sure that this was in keeping with what HEDRA's thoughts were for the park before an actual application and work was to begin on that one there. You know, you can see the positives on this would be sale of property, development of property, moderate increase in taxable value, development of a property that would be a good buffer and good neighbor to the residential development to the east, being a storage place is pretty low volume. You're not going to see the noise in the site that you see in other places. On the other hand, you're looking at a site here that are you getting the bang for the buck that you could if something else were to go on, and that the land within the industrial park is a finite resource. So wanted to pass that on to you tonight. We do have Chad Smurava here. That one I do know. I'm going to bring him into the meeting here. And so he can be available to answer any questions that you may have as well. And I'm available too. Thank you.
Good evening. Hi, Chad. We're
Hi.
welcoming you in now. Hopefully you can hear us okay.
Yes,
Thank you for joining us tonight. I don't know if you had any comments to share with us off the bat. Maybe just a minute or two, how things are going there, and a little bit of commentary on the proposal that you sent in with these, the nice layout. And then we'll open it up to the commissioners to maybe ask you a couple questions.
sure. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, John, for the introduction. I am Chad Smurava, and have enjoyed working with John and actually the whole team over in the city planning area here for the last, I guess, almost 2 years. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share our vision for with you tonight here for this Lot 3 on Spiral Boulevard. It was a little over a year ago that I was sharing with the same group our original vision for a more balanced approach for business storage and personal storage on this Lot 3. That original plan had a really nice balance that that original lot could accommodate just based on its size and actually its dimensions and its layout. It's more square and rectangular. So that site would have originally provided for that great balance between the business storage and the personal storage units. We liked that approach because it spreads our risk across a couple of different types of customer bases. So while that large pile of dirt kind of shook up our business plan a little bit last year, I am really thankful that I was able to work with HEDRA, the city, to be relocated across the retention pond there on Lightbourne Court, like John showed you. With that move over to Lightbourne Court, we were able to basically lay out almost entirely personal storage units, again, just based on the way traffic and whatnot would have flowed on there and with whatnot. So unfortunately, we've got about 4,000 square feet of business storage that is on there right now, or actually it's going to open on Tuesday. We hope to get occupancy from the city. But what we're looking to do is we're looking to kind of take our original plan that we had submitted to you about 1.5 years or 2 years ago, but actually morph it much more into to balance toward the business side, business storage units. We've had the opportunity, but being open now for about 4 months, and actually advertising and whatnot for probably well over 7 months, to have a lot of conversations with people, business owners who have been seeking us out. So that's been a very positive. I think that is what's driving us or to come back to you now to try and kind of fulfill that original balance between business storage and personal, which right now we don't have or weren't able to obtain. Maybe just to tell you a little bit about business customers, they're an entirely different customer that right now isn't served in Hastings and really can't practically be served by the smaller personal units that we mostly constructed and what other entities who operate in this field in Hastings have available. So totally new, it'll be totally unique to Hastings, but it's pretty widely, as you get outside of the metro, they're much more prevalent just because you can make the finances work with them better. So that's one of the reasons why we see this as an ideal site. These business units are much deeper in terms of typically the 40 to 45 foot depth, much wider in size, and have much larger overhead doors to fit box trucks, Amazon type delivery vehicles, those kinds of things. They just aren't able to fit in small units. They also attract small business owners that are in the trades that are, they're employing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, small amount quantity of people. And you can kind of, if you kind of open your eyes and, as you start to move around the city here in the next couple of weeks, you'll start to notice that those trucks are there, parked in people's driveways, they're parked on the street. And quite often with that, they've got supplies in small amounts of inventory that might come in for particular jobs that, they need to be stored temporarily. They'd be storing their vehicle typically in here as well, 1 or 2. So it really works to what they're looking for. One of the things also is that these smaller businesses have a really hard time being able to lease such a relatively, though speaking, small space, because quite often also if they could find it, to buy and maintain is quite expensive for just one small entity to do. It's quite often more risk than they might be interested in or what their banker might be okay with. So it's really much more flexible and cost effective for them. And you could look at it in a certain sense as this is part of a life cycle of a business. And while we could have many businesses at different parts of their development, meaning new businesses, or might make sense for businesses who have been around and it just suits them. But I think what it does is kind of provides the fertile soil for them to kind of lay roots in a lower risk manner. And so obviously our hope is, and we feel strongly that this would do that. And so while our facility itself wouldn't be chiefly delivering jobs that I could show you, feel strongly, like I said, that it will be providing the fertile soil for those businesses who, ultimately those people, whether they move to Hastings, ultimately live because they're able to find this, or they've already been here and we allow them to grow their business here. I think it's just a nice circle there. So I think what we're looking and hoping to do is to have that conversation here with HEDRA tonight, just to see if you'd be willing to work with us to support these types of business spaces and, meet those needs that are out there. So we're asking HEDRA tonight to begin the process, hopefully to work with us to develop Lot 3 on Spiral Boulevard.
Thank you so much. Okay. Do we have some questions for follow-up? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Balsanic.
Thank you, Madam President. A quick question, is any of this going to be climate controlled?
So initially in phase 1, it won't be. And that's where in terms of the life cycle, our hope is that we would have the ability to do that. What I don't want to do though is represent that as such. I'd rather pay more for the land and know that I don't have a quote unquote liability hanging out there that I wasn't able to deliver on with the city in a year or two. Because obviously the tax credit is based on the value minimum value that we can deliver. But this is kind of this small business and whatnot is kind of part of my genetics, if you will. So I do have an uncle who's also in this business, and they're about 6 months ahead of me. And what they're finding is they have to cultivate and make it available so you have to kind of get them in and to recognize that this works for them, and then it'd be me having a lot of dialogue with them and to be willing to take that risk to actually outfit a unit or two. So I guess bottom line is we'd be setting it up flexibly that we could do so, but that's not part of our original phase at this point.
What you're saying then, you're not building them for future climate control with insulation or anything like that, but that could be added later?
Sure. Yeah, so what we're looking to do is probably have about 3 phases on this. So when we hit certain milestones, if either in interest or in being rented out, the existing space rented out, we would move to the next phase. So I guess maybe the best way to say it is phase 2 or 3 could include that if I can find that demand. But again, one of the things that also does is it's a higher price point too for I should say the small businesses. So I think that's initially not our direct target customer, but I'm going to be watching that closely. Opportunity. Phase 2 or 3.
Yeah, I like the idea of the business storage because we do have in Hastings, and I observed 2 yesterday, trailers, enclosed trailers. They both had some, ladders on them, some equipment hanging on the sides or even on top. And they're parked in front of residences. I'm not sure what our ordinances are in terms of parking on the street, but it is nice to have that kind of storage available so that we can keep on the soft side in our residential areas.
So you point out a couple of things, and what we're initially and most directly targeting would probably be like your landscapers, your very small drywall contractors. We have a small security installer who is going to be moving into our unit that we have under construction opening next week. So they don't need an office, they don't need those kind of facilities. But when a delivery comes of cable, security cameras, and whatnot, they need a place to put that other than their garage, which it's funny to say, it's kind of the spouse that's usually nudging them to go and rent with us to get their garage opened up, to get the vehicle, off the street or out of the driveway. So.
Well, that's fine. I really do like that idea. So the size of the business units would allow for somebody to drive up with a private vehicle, personal vehicle, and then take the van or whatever out. There's room for them to park that vehicle then?
So what I would probably anticipate is that these are going to be very small, 1, 2, 3, 4 type people or employment companies. So the units themselves are going to be between 14 to probably 18 feet wide, depending on which option they would choose, and 40 feet deep. There would possibly be space to park them inside. The drives, in order to accommodate just the proper turnarounds, which the fire department will require and what we would want, is going to be in the neighborhood of 50 to 65 feet. We're still kind of trying to nail that down. So there would be an opportunity for them to not block drive paths if there was one or two or three of those, vehicles parked.
Okay.
Within
Yeah. So what's the height on the garage doors then?
Sure. So we're going to be experimenting here in phase one with primarily two different sizes. We're going to be looking to come in with a 14 by 30 and a 14 by 40 unit. Because part of it is hitting the right price point. Part of it is how do you minimally meet their need and, again, hit the lowest price point so that you can entice them in. So the doors would be typically 12 feet wide by between 12 feet tall and 14 feet tall.
Very good. I don't have those kinds of vehicles now with my business, but years ago, I used that type of storage facility in Inver Grove Heights for equipment, trailers and so forth, and material for that.
And that's probably as close actually as you'd find to Hastings, or that is as close as you'd find to Hastings right now.
Yeah, I know there's one off Jamaica and 61. I'm not sure if they're business oriented.
Sure.
I think is it Acorn?
So there's the large new Park Place. That's a different type of concept. That is, I believe there's 3 large buildings or maybe 4, but those are condo spaces that the people actually own. And so those are kind of a combination between what's commonly known as man caves or, that kind of place. So those get quite elaborate. They're usually in the $70,000 to $90,000 range, and they're all for purchase. I believe right now they're renting out whatever has not yet sold, but ultimately their whole business plan and their model is to sell them as condos.
And then landscaping. Are we to that point yet, John, where we're talking about landscaping or not?
Commissioner, at this point, I'm looking at the question of whether we should move down the road with a potential sale for this type of use. If the commission says, yes, this is something that we should work with Mr. Sravava on and sell the property, then we would come back with a preliminary development, a preliminary purchase agreement for the property, concept plan, and then go through the actual site plan where we take a look at those details on it. But before we got too far down the road on that, I wanted to have a check-in with the commission to make sure that this type of use was okay with HEDRA for the park before we spent too much time and Mr. Swawa put too much capital into it.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay, so Mr. Hinsman, do we need a motion to move forward with the preliminary? Is this informational in nature?
Madam President, informational in nature. So
Thank you.
Looking to see what the general direction of the commission is towards this.
Thank you very much.
Can I throw one question at Chad?
Sure.
Chad, can you just throw some numbers back at us in terms of number of units and maybe a range of price points for those business units?
So they're going to be priced right at about $280 to $300 per month. That's what our pricing study has shown would be fair, and we can still balance out our financials.
And then for somebody that wanted that with, say, climate control, like Joe asked about, that would just bump that up some factor of based on that additional capital that would go into fitting it out.
That's increasing costs quite a bit. So honestly, that's not part of our business plan at this point. It's something, like I said, I'm going to watch. So I would really be jumping into an area that I don't have the information.
Sure.
Maybe, but to answer your question directly on the number of units, so we're looking to do 3 phases. Phase 1 would have 18 of these units, and our goal would be, if this process goes well, to be breaking ground as soon as the road restrictions come off in the spring. And then what we would be doing is marketing them heavily over the winter. Unfortunately, though, as much as we market, people just don't sign agreements until they actually see it and come and kick it. But what they are doing is they're watching our internet, they're driving by. So our goal, though, would be have 18 up and running here, that we start construction April and ready for June 1st. And then we would sit back and evaluate phase 2. But I would foresee, our business plan is kind of calling for probably phase 2 to happen, actually similar to what we, this phasing schedule we have on our current site, which would be fall of 21, constructing an additional approximately 12,000 square feet. But again, the way they're laid out would probably be adjusted somewhat based on the feedback we're getting from customers. Again, whether it be price point or whether it be size or whatnot. And then the third phase, it would come after we've stabilized phases 1 and 2. If our estimates are right on, kind of the thought would be that would be going up in summer of 22. So we'd be looking at about 1.25 years type of timeline, similar to what we had asked for originally for site, but also the schedule we've been following with our current site. So
on your current site, Chad, how many business units do you have, and what's been the response, at least initially, to those?
Sure. So we've had a lot of people coming and asking because the construction firm, so we've rented 2 and we have 3 left we have a total of 5, but they're still a smaller version of the business storage because these are going to be 40 feet deep, 12 feet wide. So they have 11-foot doors, 10-foot high. So it's going to accommodate a sizable portion of of our customers that, or what I should say, to meet their needs. So we got 2 rented and 3 to go. But I think we can watch based on internet clicks and a number of other things, and there's been a lot of interest in it. And like I said, I've had 5 phone calls, I think, in the last 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, great.
And actually, kind of a funny thing, I kind of pointed out lightly in my information, or kind of the biography we passed along, but just one example of really where there's a need, but it's not currently met, is the family services in town received a pretty sizable donation from a generous resident who passed away. And so I'm working with the executive director. They're in the process of purchasing an amp. They haven't figured out exactly the size. They're experimenting right now and renting a few different sizes. But her and she's expressed that by December 1st, she's going to be looking to almost certainly move in with us. And so we're going to hold a unit for her regardless. So, just until she makes that decision, that's just kind of our donation, or, the right thing to do. So, but that's something she didn't know where to go. She looked, and there wasn't a place. So she's feeling comfortable that we got the right security. It's the right size. It'll meet their needs. So.
Great. Thanks, Chad.
You're welcome.
Mr. Vaughn.
Thanks. John, you had asked for some input, and I can support it. But I think as a council, at the city council level, we talked about housing was a high priority, and I think we're doing a great job on a lot of housing options in here. But I think our next focus is going to be jobs, and I think the direction I would like to see HEDRA headed in the near future is to start using these spaces to create some employment jobs for the community. So I think this one I support because I think it's complements the area well, but I think for future, I think we really need to focus on how we can bring jobs to town. Thanks.
Mr. Goblers?
Yeah, John, I can support this too. I think Chad did a good job explaining the life cycle of businesses. And we do have a lot of small businesses that start out as 1 unit or 1 employee jobs. But as they start to grow, they're hindered by, well, where do we put everything? What do we do and how can we expand? And this allows them to have a storage unit where they can rent for a reasonable price, maybe add another employee, grow their business to the next level. So I think it would create jobs, but not directly for Chad's business itself. So.
Thank you. And I think Mr.
I'll echo that if you don't mind. Just, it seems to me that you can't connect a job to Chad's business per se. Just having grown from 2 people to 37, I'd tell you that having a small space that's economical and it can be a stepping point really is a way that you grow a business. So it seems like while indirect, I can make a connection there that this will have a positive impact on jobs, on growth, on business growth. I don't think it's a reach to suggest that, he could lure people, or those units could be a stepping point to the point where a small business could grow and lure a family to Hastings, that then has the ability to operate from Hastings. So it seems like a good bet. I'd be in support of it.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other comments.
Yeah, President Sullivan, I just a note here. I got a text from Commissioner Piney that he was having some connectivity problems and is likely not to be able to join us for the rest of the meeting, but he did express his support for the remaining items.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smarva, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate everything that you've explained tonight in full detail. And I think for all intents and purposes, we support this venture. So we'll probably be hearing from John about moving on to next steps.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I think my next step would actually be the next week to doing soil samples and getting those things done here in the fall so we can move forward.
Fabulous.
So I really appreciate it. Good evening.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we've got 3 sub-recipient agreements, United Way of Hastings, the Nonprofit Relief Program, and the Dakota Small Business Relief Program. We can take those in order and we'll do a subsequent vote on each after Mr. Hinsman's done presenting the 3 of them. Does that sound good, folks? Yes. Okay. Mr.
Okay.
Take it away.
Thank you, Madam President. One other a note here too. When I did realize that I erred in telling Ray Menard what time the meeting started tonight. I inadvertently told him 7 p.m. So the reason Ray was not on at 6 is my fault. I apologize for that. I did relay to him that we did approve it and we're excited to move forward. And I like to have him back at a meeting in the near future to talk more about the project. But moving on to the subject at hand here, a couple of items related to the CARES Act, which is part of a $1.75 million allocation that we received from the federal government to help in COVID relief. And if you've been watching some of the council meetings over the last couple of months, you'll notice that there's been various items that have taken place there. In discussing the terms of CARES and the role between the City Council and HEDRA in allocating some of the CARES dollars, well, we came to the conclusion that the policy and the goals and the charter of HEDRA with economic development better meets some of these programs than the City Council. And so there's a couple of items that the City Council has discussed and has taken action on to do that we'd like to be able to have the allocations actually come through HEDRA. One of those would be a couple of deal with relief for nonprofit businesses. We've got a sub-recipient services agreement between HEDRA and United Way to manage a COVID relief program for small nonprofits. So we had our Heart Grant program earlier this year for businesses, but we didn't include nonprofits within there. What this would do is this would be directly targeted towards nonprofits. The United Way would run the program for us. And so there would not be any staff time or much staff time necessary to administer the program. They would do it on our behalf. And so what we're asking for with the authorization here is that the authorized signature of the agreement to work with the United Way to manage the program. And one other thing that we'd like your authorization to is that with the different allocations of funding, the $5,000 that would go to local service organizations, that we would have individual agreements for each one of these entities. And so we're asking for your authorization as well to be able to sign and execute those in coordination and consistent with the subrecipient agreement for United Way. So we've got that project going on. This is intended to be for relief programs for local small nonprofit businesses run through the United Way. The other item we have related to that is the subrecipient agreement nonprofit relief program. This is a specific allocation of $50,000 each for larger nonprofit organizations. The City Council has identified the YMCA of Hastings, Hastings Area Chamber of Commerce, and Hastings Family Service as each getting a $50,000 or up to $50,000 direct allocation from CARES to that. And so we're asking for HEDRA's assistance to execute those agreements on behalf of the City Council there. So that takes care of some of the City Council items related to CARES. Last item that we have here tonight deals with Dakota County. Dakota County also got an allocation of CARES funding. And with that, they've developed a $10 million grant program that gives $10,000 for up to 1,000 businesses within the city. Within our city CARES funding, we also put additional money into that $250,000. That being said, well, we need to enter into an agreement with Dakota County to manage the program and also to sign the individual subrecipient agreements as well with each of the grantees. So we've identified that we'll have at least 25 grants of $10,000 each that would be to Hastings businesses locally. And so those are the actions we have before you tonight. So there's the two actions related to the United Way with the subrecipient agreement to authorize signature of the main agreement and the agreements with individuals of the authorization for nonprofit relief to give up to $50,000 for the three entities that I mentioned, and then the agreements related to Dakota County. I've also got Dan Watichi here, our city administrator. Dan's been instrumental in managing our CARES Act and can answer probably more detailed questions than I can on that. So I can stand for any questions.
Okay, questions? These are all very important documents. Hopefully you have the time to look through them, but they're necessary. And we've got another commissioner or a junior administrator on, I see tonight. Obviously, all of these appear to be quite necessary to get funds to our small businesses and our nonprofits. I don't see a lot of controversy with regard to that, but if anyone has any questions before we likely approve them. Yes, Mr. Balsanic, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. We're going to be able to do all of this within the deadlines set on all of this. It just question or informal question on that. So we can get all the documentation, cross the T's, dot the I's, et cetera, John?
There's a lot of moving parts, Commissioner, absolutely. We have the assistance of two entities running the larger programs for us, with the $5,000 grants running through United Way, and then next stage managing the Dakota County grant. So we feel very confident that we'll be able to do that.
And for the sake of the public that's, watching all of this, assuming that some business or businesses did not get taken care of by the deadline, any monies left over go to the county. Am I correct? And then they will be able to allocate funds, and local businesses could apply for grants then through the county.
And Commissioner, with the, when we're talking about our allocation, our $1.75 million, and I may look to Dan on this as well, I believe that is the case, that any unspent CARES Act money allocated to the city would go to the county. Is that correct, Dan, or am I mistaken on that?
That's a correct statement, but I think it misses a couple of pieces. Whatever money the city does not spend does go to the county at November 15th, but it has only 2 weeks for the county to use the money. So if there's not an existing grant program, it's not going to get rolled into something new. It has to be spent quick. The other is the action taken by the city council on Monday night. The wording was the remainder of the money would be rolled into a public safety payroll. So that remainder piece is in some fashion, right now it looks like it's $280,000, but let's say that we didn't spend all of the $50,000 for the nonprofits and there was still $10,000. It's part of that remainder that would roll into the city coffers instead of having to give anything back.
Right, and I seconded that motion the other night at the council meeting. Just for the sake of the public, so that they know, we're trying to, we're very seriously and effectively trying to keep all of the CARES funding within the city so that nothing is kicked up to the county. Because after, if the county doesn't use it, it goes up to the state doesn't use it, it goes back to the federal government. So we're going to do all we can to keep it all here. I think Commissioner Vaughn was the one that made the motion the other night that I seconded. Okay, thanks. It's just for the sake of the public understanding all of this.
Okay, so I guess we'll take these in order. Is there a motion for the sub-recipient agreement for United Way of Hastings?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Mr. Vaughn,
Yes.
Mr. Goldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Sinclair,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Mr. Balsanic,
Yes.
and a nod from Ms. Sullivan as well here. So that is approved. Next, the sub-recipient agreement for the nonprofit relief program, in particular, the 3 entities. Is there a motion to approve this?
Also move, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there a
I'll
second?
second it.
Thank you, Mr. Goldbush. All those in favor, Mr. Vaughn,
Yes.
Mr. Goldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Sinclair,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Mr. Balsanic,
Yes.
and I will also say yes to that proposal and on the agreement. And finally, the future sub-recipient agreement as proposed, the Dakota Small Business Relief document. Do I have a motion to authorize a signature on this? Thank you, Mr. Sinclair. Thank you, Ms. Fox. All those in favor, we'll start with Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Goldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Sinclair,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Mr. Balsanic,
Yes.
and I will also say yes. So that authorization is approved as well. Thank you, Mr. Hinsman. I will hand this back to you for final reports and information.
Okay, thank you so much. First thing we have is CARES funding. I think we went through a lot of that in the last section, so I don't think there's much more to add on that. We've seen a lot of activity going on around town right now, which is great. From a vacancy standpoint, we got a couple new things coming in. Minnesota Orthodontics is relocating to along vacant spot at South Frontage Road in that strip mall across from Walmart. So that's great. Haggerty Insurance is going to be operating out of the formal specialties property on North Frontage Road. So both those are filled up. From a development side right now, we have already approved 260 new units for construction, which will begin this year. And we've got another 100 units that are on deck for approval by the end of this year. So we're seeing a tremendous amount of residential growth and a lot of variety of things. Within your packet, I included a couple of them. And since packet time, a couple more have come through. So we've got the Confluence, which continues on with their 20 apartments. The villas at Pleasant, 32-unit villa homes, that was approved by council. And the development agreement was approved. We're going through the final plans on that one so that they could begin construction yet this fall to hit spring parade. Sebin Ridge, which is now going to be known as Heritage Ridge, same thing. That's a large 116-unit development west of General Sebin Drive that we recently annexed. The first phase of 9 units is on for approval next week or next council meeting, but they'll be doing they've got some preliminary approvals to grade out there. And so that continues on the same schedule. Turn dirt this fall, put utilities in, get stuff ready for spring parade. In addition to that, we have 2 other developments that have come in. We did get the plans in for Vermilion Acres, which is the 75-unit senior housing development at County Road 47 in Riverwood that Headwaters Development and Mint Development is doing. That's going to be a combination between, I think it's 60 assisted care living units and 15 memory care units. So that'll be going forward to our Planning Commission for review, their first meeting in November. And then we also got plans in for South Oaks 4th edition, which is another 33 units down of single family homes down on south of 31st Street and west of Century Drive. So number of developments going on right now, bring a variety of different types of units into the city. In addition to that, I continue to have conversations with folks on more units that may include further annexations, further development of long vacant land that we've wanted to see development. So the timing right now for these projects is really good. The other project that we did approve this year that has not started construction, which is the senior housing development at Schoolhouse Square, they intend to turn dirt this spring as well. So that'll be another project moving forward. So I can stand for any questions on anything development related. We take a look at our economic development coordinator. The good news is we will have one shortly. And I will share a name, and hopefully this time the name will be right and the person will start because I jinxed it the last time. But we do have Eric Moss from WSB. We put an offer out to him and he has accepted. We are just about through our final due diligence and able to establish a start date for him. I'm very confident he will be here for our November meeting. Eric has been working at WSB, I think about 6-7 years or so. A variety of economic development projects. He's a go-getter. He's a great, personable individual. He's going to bring a lot of gusto to this position. And we're very excited to get him on board.
Yes, thank you.
That's all I had for updates.
And that is all I have on our agenda this evening, folks. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Wants to leave?
I'll move.
So moved.
Okay, everybody moved for that. Okay, adjourned. See you all probably sooner than next month. I run into you more often than not, but I will